Hello, welcome to the Tim Booker channel. I wish you all an enjoyable listening experience. Today, the book I'll be interpreting for you is The Time Cure. This book explores a mental disorder, overcoming PTSD with the new psychology of time perspective therapy, commonly referred to as PTSD. If you're a fan of American TV series, you may be familiar with this term. These shows often depict American soldiers returning from the Afghan battlefield with PTSD, a condition that prevents them from returning to their normal lives due to the horrors of war, resulting in various psychological abnormalities. In reality, PTSD isn't as distant from ordinary people's lives as you might think. Traumatic events, ranging from public criticism and humiliation to natural disasters and accidents like car crashes, fires, and earthquakes, or even witnessing tragedies happening to others, can all have a profound impact on a person's psyche, causing harm. Some wounds are hard to shake off, leading to mental disorders, and that's precisely what PTSD is. For instance, in September 2018, a content moderator for the social media platform Facebook was sued. This content moderator's job involved removing hate speech and inappropriate content, including violent and explicit images. He claimed to have developed PTSD from constant exposure to disturbing images. The book we're delving into today, The Time Cure, presents a novel therapy for treating PTSD known as time perspective therapy. This therapy focuses on time itself, aiming to achieve healing by altering the patient's perception of time and constructing a new time perspective. The Time Cure is a collaboration between Philip Zimbardo and the Sword couple. Zimbardo is the creator of time perspective therapy, a renowned psychologist at Stanford University, and a former president of the American Psychological Association. Apart from the book we're discussing today, which advocates the healing power of time, Zimbardo has authored numerous best-selling books, including Psychology in Life and Zimbardo's Psychology. Some of his works are even used as textbooks in nearly 300 international universities, including Harvard. Zimbardo is also famous for initiating the Stanford Prison Experiment. The other two authors, Richard and Rosemary Sword, are practitioners of time perspective therapy. They are both clinical psychologists based on the Big Island of Hawaii, specializing in treating PTSD. Their primary focus has been on veterans who have suffered from PTSD for many years, with some patients enduring the condition for over 70 years since World War II. By coincidence, the Sword couple came across Zimbardo's time perspective therapy and successfully applied it to their patients, achieving excellent clinical results. Today, I will primarily address three key questions related to this book. 1. What is PTSD, and what are its typical symptoms? 2. What is Zimbardo's time perspective? 3. How can Zimbardo's time perspective therapy be applied to treat PTSD? Let's begin by addressing the first question, what is PTSD? PTSD stands for Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. It refers to a persistent mental disorder that occurs after encountering extraordinary threats or disasters. This type of mental disorder has a certain incubation period. It doesn't immediately manifest right after the traumatic experience. Instead, it gradually surfaces over several weeks or months. PTSD can vary in severity. Individuals who have experienced mild PTSD, such as being startled in a traffic accident without significant physical harm, often see their trauma symptoms improve over time. However, when the trauma is more severe, such as in cases of war, assault, physical injury, and the like, the images and memories associated with these injuries can persist in the victim's mind for a long time, possibly deepening over time. Victims affected by traumatic memories may isolate themselves, avoiding social interactions and refusing to discuss anything related to the trauma. Even simple tasks that were once easy for them may become extremely challenging. Severe PTSD often comes with comorbid conditions like depression and anxiety, necessitating psychological therapy. The symptoms of PTSD can be divided into three main categories. 1. Traumatic re-experiencing. This symptom involves individuals who have experienced trauma repeatedly revisiting the scene of the traumatic event in their minds, much like playing a slideshow. They vividly recall the details and events from the time of the trauma. In their daily lives, even the slightest hint or trigger can bring these memories flooding back. For example, a wife who lost her husband in a car accident may instinctively want to distance herself whenever she sees fast-moving cars on the road. She might also repeatedly visualize the traumatic scene, her husband's helpless expression when he sought help, his bloodied body, and the feeling of despair. Some patients with PTSD also commonly experience sleep disturbances, often accompanied by nightmares, leading to frequent awakenings. The second symptom is avoidance and emotional numbing. Patients experiencing these symptoms often make deliberate efforts to avoid any events or situations related to their traumatic experiences. They may refuse to participate in activities associated with the trauma. For example, individuals who have experienced earthquakes may avoid any visuals or programs related to earthquakes, even changing the channel or leaving the room when such content is on television. Some patients may even exhibit selective memory loss and cannot recall the details of events related to their trauma. When asked about what happened during the traumatic event, they might respond with a blank mind or claim to have forgotten. The third symptom is heightened arousal. Patients with this symptom often display excessive vigilance and sensitivity. They find it challenging to stay calm and are prone to anger over minor incidents, frequently experiencing anxiety. For instance, someone who used to have a mild temper may become easily irritable and prone to outbursts after experiencing trauma. Even trivial matters can trigger intense anger. Some veterans, when exposed to stage effects like smoke used for theatrical purposes, may instantly recall wartime scenes, react with a state of heightened alertness, and relive the fear they felt on the front lines. Additionally, some veterans who were constantly in a state of high tension on the battlefield may react strongly to even minor physical contact in civilian life, quickly entering a defensive mode, and sometimes resorting to physical aggression. Others may find these changes perplexing, but in reality, these individuals have developed PTSD. This concludes the first part of the book, where we've gained a basic understanding of PTSD. To recap, PTSD is a long-lasting mental disorder that only surfaces after experiencing an extraordinary threat or disaster. It manifests in three categories of symptoms: traumatic re-experiencing symptoms, avoidance and emotional numbing symptoms, and heightened arousal symptoms. Next, let's delve into the second question and introduce Zimbardo's time perspective. Zimbardo's time perspective, in simple terms, is the way we perceive time. Zimbardo discovered that even though we all have the same resource, time, the way we view it can vary greatly, affecting our attitudes and decision-making. He divides time into three broad temporal zones: the past, the present, and the future. Building upon this framework, he identifies 6 distinct time perspectives based on how people view time. 1. Past positive time perspective. Individuals with a past positive time perspective tend to focus on the positive aspects of their past, cherishing memories of happier days. They may enjoy preserving photo albums and keepsakes to help reminisce about better times. These individuals also have a strong enthusiasm for celebrating traditional holidays like Mid-Autumn Festival and Spring Festival. They draw positive experiences from their past to guide their future decisions. For instance, when facing an important job interview, someone with a past positive time perspective is more likely to remind themselves of their past successful interviews, believing that they will succeed again. 2. Past negative time perspective. On the flip side, those with a past negative time perspective tend to fixate on past mistakes and regrets. Even if they have experienced 99 successful interviews in the past but one failure, they are inclined to think, "I've failed interviews in the past, so I might fail this one too." These individuals are often seen among us, regardless of their significant achievements or the praise they receive, they still feel that their performance falls short. In contrast to those with a past positive perspective, individuals with a past negative time perspective are less likely to experience happiness and success and tend to dwell on their shortcomings. The third time perspective is the present hedonistic time perspective. Individuals with this perspective tend to live in the moment, seeking pleasure, mood enhancement, and immediate enjoyment. Their motto is often, "Carpe diem," or "Seize the day." Correspondingly, the fourth time perspective is the present fatalistic time perspective. Those with this perspective believe that all human decisions are predetermined, guided by fate or a higher power. They feel that there's no need to spend time planning or considering their choices. What will be, will be. Consequently, they exhibit a passive attitude towards the present. The fifth time perspective is the future-oriented time perspective. People who are diligent savers and planners often adopt this perspective. They tend to focus on the future, making various plans and preparations. However, they may sacrifice present happiness in pursuit of their long-term goals. Their lives are governed by their long-term plans, and they usually find success as they can methodically work towards their objectives. Finally, the sixth time perspective is the transcendental future time perspective. Individuals with this perspective believe that the best times are yet to come after death. Their entire lives are dedicated to preparing for the afterlife. This perspective is often related to religious beliefs, where some religions teach that true happiness for humans is in the afterlife, where they may be reunited with loved ones or experience a better existence. Some adhere to this perspective not for religious reasons but from a sense of responsibility towards future generations, making choices that consider the impact on future people. For instance, certain indigenous cultures have codified that actions should consider their effect on future generations, and some environmentalists hold a transcendental future time perspective, making choices that prioritize the well-being of the planet for future generations. These six time perspectives encompass the various ways people view time. Each individual tends to lean towards one of these perspectives, and their time perspective often influences their decision-making in life. People with a past-oriented time perspective make decisions based on past experiences, those with a present-oriented perspective prioritize immediate pleasure, and future-oriented individuals weigh decisions through long-term calculations. Zimbardo suggests the importance of cultivating a balanced time perspective. This means not excessively favoring any one of the six time perspectives but finding an effective equilibrium between the past, present, and future. In this balanced time perspective, people can enjoy the present without being overly affected by past negative experiences and can make well-considered plans for the future. So how can we use Zimbardo's time perspective to treat PTSD? This is the third question we're going to address. For individuals with PTSD, the most common time perspectives they exhibit are past negative and present fatalistic. In their world, the past acts like a massive black hole, holding them tightly, while the present feels entirely controlled by fate, with no room for their own agency. The future, for them, is often unseen. The core idea of using time perspective therapy to treat PTSD is to transform the patient's past negative and present fatalistic time perspectives into a more balanced one. This transformation can be summarized in four main steps. 1. Respect the trauma. This step involves acknowledging and respecting the trauma. It's like opening the door to the past and allowing the patient to confront it. For example, for someone like Eve, who experienced sexual assault, this would mean acknowledging the trauma and not avoiding it. 2. Enhance positive past memories. In this step, therapy focuses on increasing the positive memories from the past. It helps the patient to reframe their past experiences by emphasizing positive aspects. For Eve, this could involve remembering the good times in her life before the traumatic event. 3. Cultivate a healthy present hedonistic time perspective. The therapy encourages the patient to cultivate a healthier present hedonistic time perspective. This means learning to live in the moment, seeking enjoyment, and focusing on immediate pleasure without being overly controlled by past trauma or feeling powerless in the present. 4. Plan for the future. The final step involves planning for the future. Patients are encouraged to make future-oriented decisions, which may have felt impossible in the past. This step helps patients regain a sense of control and agency over their lives. Let's go back to Eve's case to illustrate these steps. After her sexual assault and subsequent workplace harassment, Eve developed severe PTSD. She lived in fear and couldn't even be intimate with her husband. After seeking therapy, here's how the 4 steps might have played out. Respecting the trauma. In therapy, Eve opens up about her traumatic experience and the subsequent workplace harassment. She no longer avoids discussing it but confronts it with professional guidance. Enhancing positive past memories. Therapy helps Eve remember the positive aspects of her life before the trauma. She recalls moments of happiness, success, and love, helping her reframe her perspective on life. Cultivating a healthy present hedonistic time perspective, Eve learns to live in the present, enjoying moments with her loved ones and engaging in activities that bring her joy. She stops letting the past control her present. Planning for the future. Eve starts planning for her future, regaining her sense of agency. She sets personal and professional goals and works towards them, looking forward to a brighter future. In the context of PTSD treatment, these steps help patients heal by addressing the negative impact of past trauma, re-evaluating their perspective on the present, and allowing them to regain control over their future. After patients have gone through the process of sharing their trauma, the next step is to address their negative past time perspective, especially prevalent in PTSD patients. These individuals tend to view their past as a repository of bad memories. To transform their negative past time perspective into a positive one, an effort is made to replace traumatic memories with positive ones. Let's continue using the example of Eve. Eve had a deep love for her cat and took great pleasure in her academic achievements and the praises she received from others. These positive events and feelings formed vivid mental images in her mind. Whenever traumatic memories surfaced, she would immediately replace them with these positive mental images. In another case, Zimbardo worked with an individual named James, who described his life as a continuous reel of terrifying experiences, including failures, rejections, and missed opportunities, playing like a never-ending slideshow in his mind. Zimbardo advised James to create an additional set of 40 positive slides to intersperse with his existing 80 negative ones. These positive slides represented enjoyable moments such as gatherings with friends, favorite movies, food, and books. When James' mind involuntarily played the slideshow, he could now randomly insert these 40 positive slides among the original 80. While the negative memories still existed, they began to receive occasional respite. Through these two steps, patients gradually shift from a predominantly negative past time perspective to a more positive one. After experiencing these initial transformations, the deeply rooted negative memories in their minds begin to be replaced by more positive ones. This transition marks a critical part of the healing process for individuals with PTSD. Now, we move on to the third step, cultivating a healthy hedonistic time perspective. Hedonism may sound like it promotes indulgence and a lack of ambition, but for PTSD patients, learning to enjoy the present moment is crucial. Many individuals who have experienced trauma tend to dwell in the past and suffer from low spirits. As a result, they often abandon activities they used to enjoy and adopt a fatalistic outlook on life. They might feel that everything is predetermined, leaving them with no control over their circumstances. So, how can this be addressed? Zimbardo believes that enjoying the present moment primarily involves maintaining a state of having things to do. When choosing activities, there are 3 key principles to follow. 1. Start with your interests. If patients previously enjoyed reading, painting, playing music, or exercising, they should explore these interests in new ways. By engaging in activities they once loved, they can gradually rediscover their passion. 2. Begin with simple tasks. For those without specific interests, starting with straightforward activities like cleaning, taking care of pets, or going grocery shopping can be helpful. Planning and completing these tasks each day ensures that they remain busy, which can be beneficial for those dealing with PTSD. 3. Engage in social interactions. PTSD patients often isolate themselves, avoiding social contact, especially with men if they have a fear of them. However, expanding one's social circle is essential. Starting by going out with a loved one for a movie or dinner and then gradually participating in group activities such as book clubs or meditation sessions can be beneficial. Returning to the example of Eve, her determination to attend a gathering for traumatized veterans was not easy, given her fear of men following her sexual assault. However, she realized that the attendees were all veterans who had experienced trauma themselves, and they showed a willingness to help her, even without knowing the specifics of her trauma. Through these gatherings, she built trust with male friends, and her fear of men began to diminish. Additionally, when she wasn't attending these meetings, Eve forced herself to leave her home. She frequently visited a nearby bookstore, where she made new female friends. They would meet for coffee and engage in activities like yoga. Over time, Eve's life became more fulfilling, and she started to appreciate the present instead of feeling that it was merely a rehash of the past. As a result of her efforts, Eve eventually felt ready to return to work. Cultivating a hedonistic time perspective, as Zimbardo suggests, can significantly improve the lives of individuals dealing with PTSD. Finally, the fourth step is planning for the future. As patients gradually move away from their negative time perspective of the past and regain the energy to take action in the present, it's essential to engage in some future planning. For many people suffering from PTSD, they may have stopped their previous work or activities. Planning for the future can begin with steps like returning to work, but it can also involve setting meaningful personal goals. For example, planning to travel to specific destinations within the next 3 years or learning to play a musical instrument within the next 2 years. In essence, the more specific and interesting the future plans, the more helpful they can be in the recovery from PTSD. In Eve's case, once she overcame her fear of men, she began to look forward to the possibility of love in her future. She also expressed an interest in obtaining a social work license and working in the field of social services. Additionally, she envisioned starting her own company. Through this planning, Eve started to feel that her future held hope and possibilities. Zimbardo's therapy for PTSD involves these 4 steps: addressing the past, present, and future, and reducing the burden of negative memories from the past. By gradually establishing a relatively balanced time perspective, individuals with PTSD can work towards healing. It's important to note that the methods mentioned here are daily strategies for symptom improvement and should not replace professional psychological therapy. If symptoms are severe, it is crucial for patients to seek professional psychological help. With that, we've completed our interpretation of "Let Time Heal Everything." We've covered the concept of PTSD, its typical symptoms, and Zimbardo's time perspective therapy with its 4 steps: respecting trauma, increasing positive memories from the past, cultivating a healthy hedonistic time perspective, and planning for the future. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe to the Tim Booker channel, like, and share this valuable knowledge with your friends. Let's combine wisdom and practice to achieve our financial goals and create a brighter future together. Thank you all, and goodbye.